Hey up everyone. Today we have more KTM news and I'm just going to give it to you straight. I look at the latest announcements from Pierer Mobility and the KTM group of companies. KTM does have a history of killing companies it gets involved with after all. We had Husqvarna and Penton once, remember, both victims of KTM, and more have suffered too. You know from previous videos I have my concerns about the Pierer Mobility Group and its increased hold on certain brands, including the once great MV Agusta name. But that's all old news. So what's happening now? As things look, it is increasingly likely that at very least the Gas name will likely soon be gone forever from racing, if not completely. The question is, how far-reaching will the effects of this announcement be? What is the financial reality, and are we seeing the final nails in the coffins of Gas and possibly even Husky too? You may have seen the video about the KTM 790 failures, and I told you more would be coming, but if you haven't seen it, maybe go and take a look to give this video some context. Here, I will talk about KTM and the other brands involved, but it is much more about the Pierer Mobility Group of companies as a whole. In a statement to investors on June the 14th, 2024, Pierer Mobility Group made the following announcement. And first I will read it in its entirety, then I will look at the impact of certain statements within the announcement. Remember, Pierer Mobility are also heavily involved in bicycles and electric transport, so there are other factors outside of motorcycles at play here. I have talked about Pierer Mobility and the KTM group before, and I will link videos at the end and in the description. But for those who don't know me already, I am not a fan of the corporate web that big companies like Pierer Mobility weave, and I am under no illusions as to what their primary focus will always be. That, my friends, will always be profits for the shareholders. Anyway, to the announcement. Pierer Mobility said in a section of the announcement headed, "Sales fall short of expectations due to persistently high interest rates in the USA and volatile market environment in Europe," that in the current financial year, momentum in Pierer Mobility's core motorbike markets in the USA and Europe has slowed significantly due to the latest interest rate decisions in the USA. Interest rates are expected to remain high, which will have a negative impact on sales expectations for the American market. Sales figures in Europe are also still volatile. Overall, Pierer Mobility's sales figures will fall short of expectations this year after 3 years of above-average success. They continue with, "This means that dealers will have to reduce their inventories and thus continue to tie up considerable capital. The Pierer Mobility Group is therefore continuing its effort to strengthen its dealer structure through extended payment terms and higher discounts. These measures have already led to a sharp increase in working capital in the past financial year. Management expects working capital and the associated capital commitment to remain high in 2024. This is expected to have a significant negative impact on earnings before interest and taxes and the financial results in the current financial year." In another section, titled "Tighter Cost Management and Reduction of Production Volumes in Austria," they say, "The production costs of motorbikes in Europe has risen due to high wage settlements and increasing costs in connection with regulations and bureaucracy, putting a strain on competitiveness. Production volumes are therefore being significantly reduced at the production site at Matterhofen in Austria. At the same time, the company is tightening cost management throughout the group. With the growth in sales figures over the past 10 years, the number of employees at the motorbike subsidiary KTM AG has more than doubled. In view of the changed location and market situations, the number of employees has now had to be adjusted. This reduction in personnel after years of rising employment is painful but necessary in order to maintain and secure the competitiveness of the production site." Then we get a section titled expansion of the supply chain in India and China. It reads, another priority in 2024 is to increase efficiency in product development. The focus will be on aligning and prioritising activities in line with the group's premium brand strategy and streamlining development processes. Following on from this, joint research and development with the strategic partners Bajaj Auto in India and CF Moto in China will be expanded at their respective locations. Due to the increasingly fragile supplier industry in Europe, the Pierer Mobility Group is utilising the favourable economic conditions in these regions to secure its competitiveness. An efficient and high-quality supplier industry is being established there. I will come back to some key points here, but the next section was titled Adjustment of the Guidance for the 2024 Financial Year. It reads, for the 2024 financial year, the Executive Board expects a decline in sales of between 10 and 15% for the motorcycle division due to the current market developments. In the motorcycle segments, the Executive Board assumes that the cost savings introduced in the current financial year will be able to compensate for the negative effects of declining sales to such an extent that a balanced to slightly positive earnings before interest and taxes can be generated. The development of existing dealers and the further expansion of the dealer network to support brand strategy will be key issues in 2024. Now this might read like corporate gobbledygook, but let's look at some key points. And remember, KTM Group is the parent company of Gas, Husqvarna and MV Agusta, and Pierer Mobility is the company that owns KTM. The corporate structure is complicated, but I have looked into that in other videos and will come to it again later. To begin with, we get the news that sales in Pierer Mobility's core motorbike markets in the US and Europe have significantly dropped. This is blamed on the interest rate decisions in the US, but no reason is really cited for the lack of sales in Europe. They tell investors that sales figures will be down this year, but the figures weren't released until more recently, and they were published by Finanzen.net, a German financial publication, and they are far worse than any of us might have expected. Here you will see there has been a 5-year decline in share prices of just below 50%. But over the last year, things look even worse, with a 66% drop from around €75 per share to just above €25. In real terms, that means the market capitalisation of the company, which was almost $3.5 billion in December 2021, is now down to just $1 billion. In a statement, they continue, dealers will have to reduce their inventories but continue to tie up capital. So they seem to be saying, we still want your money, but you're going to get less bikes to sell. They continue, the Pierer Mobility Group will continue to strengthen its dealer structure with extended payment terms and bigger discounts. To be clear though, these are measures they have already implemented, and although they led to an increase in working capital, it wasn't enough and is expected to have a significant negative impact on earnings before interest and taxes in the current financial year. Then we get to the nitty-gritty for riders. Production cost of motorbikes in Europe has risen due to high wage settlements and increasing costs in connection with regulations and bureaucracy. So, Pierer Mobility want the kudos of being a European manufacturer, but don't want to pay the higher wages of their staff in Europe because it eats into their profits. They also don't like the regulations and bureaucracy of Europe and the USA because, again, it eats into their profits. And the final nail is that they simply sell more bikes in Asia now. That is the market they care about. They talk about it putting a strain on their competitiveness, but let us be real, it is the strain on their profits they are really worried about. They go on to say they are cutting production volumes significantly in Austria and tightening cost management throughout the group. I'm not sure how they can cut production in Europe anymore without moving the production of the top-of-the-range Super Duke and Super Adventure away from Austria. So cost-cutting and relocation of production are what we can be sure we have to look forward to. They say that with the growth in sales figures over the last 10 years, the number of employees at the motorbike subsidiary of KTM AG has more than doubled. In view of the changed location and market situations, the number of employees has now had to be adjusted. This reduction in personnel after years of rising employment is painful but necessary in order to maintain and secure the competitiveness of the production site. So to keep the factory in Austria, we need to lay people in Austria off. Have you ever heard anything more ridiculous? Who are they really trying to kid? Remember, this is a statement to their own shareholders. In addition to job cuts in the motorcycle business, Pierer Mobility Group will downsize some of its motorcycle racing projects. They are already pulling the plug. The Tech 3 team will now be running as a secondary KTM factory team instead of with the Gas name, so that costs will be covered by Red Bull, and in America it looks like Troy Lee may be moving over to Ducati with his team. Husqvarna are the obvious next victims, although it may be that their more established name in MX saves them for now. It does seem likely that this will also have an impact on MV Agusta's future racing aspirations. But as with Husqvarna, that is still not to the point where any final decisions are being made as far as I know. KTM have always been the jewel in the crown of the Pierer Mobility Group, and that's unlikely to change. But as in the past with the likes of Penton and Husaberg, it looks like it is only a matter of time before we lose at least one and possibly up to three once great brands, sacrificed to satisfy the thirst for money of the big orange machine. So we have a serious 15% drop in sales, a company that is now worth less than 30% of what it was worth 3 years ago. Profits are in a downward spiral, customer satisfaction sits somewhere between zero and absolute zero, and the parent company is moving production into India and China to save money, and the funding for the racing program is being cut. Does that sound healthy to you? They may continue with the grand announcements, but this is not a healthy company. Bajaj Group now own 50% of the whole Pierer Mobility Group after sacrificing their shares in KTM, and this gives the combination of Bajaj Group and CF Moto a controlling stake in the company. Even KTM do have to realise that they are now a small part of a small player in a much bigger pond with much bigger fish in it. This means any future decisions are likely to be much more beneficial for and targeted at the Asian market than ours. Even adding sales from Europe, the US and the UK together, it doesn't get close to the value of either the Indian or Chinese markets alone. These markets are very different and want different products. So where does that leave Europe and the US when it comes to future racing and sales? Honestly, I think it is unlikely that the Gas name will survive. KTM now have any tech they wanted, so the brand can be disposed of. I would hope Husqvarna will survive, but at the moment that looks questionable at best. When you consider that professional motorsports is probably one of the few reasons they have survived so far, what effect will pulling back from the world of racing have on the Husqvarna name? It's hanging on by a thread right now, and it hasn't made any friends recently. Even if the different brands survive initially, as Pierer Mobility reallocate finances away from racing to fund the next few years and try to recover the $2.5 billion in losses, the future doesn't look bright or orange from where I'm sitting. What I will say is I do think the case at MV Agusta is slightly different. but I don't think it will be long before at very least the engines and sub-assemblies for the MV Agusta bikes will be being built by CF Moto. They already have a version of the 675 Triple on the horizon, and the fact no mention has been made about it at all makes me think they will be treated just like everyone else within the Pierer Mobility Group, like pawns. One of the kingpins in this story, who we rarely get to hear about in the UK, are the Bajaj Group. They do build for KTM, BMW and Triumph, and their huge facility in India gives their partners a low-tariff route into the huge Indian market. This is a company I've talked briefly about at times, but I will be doing a deeper dive into the company, who have an ever-increasing influence on the motorcycle world. They could now arguably call themselves one of the largest motorcycle companies of all. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. Don't forget to check out the other videos about the KTM group of companies in the links in the description. This is an ever-evolving story. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this video, and as always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. I have been catching up. There are some still left to be answered, but I will get there. If you got this far and haven't already, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing does help a lot, and it means you get to find out when our regular updates, news, views and other videos go out. We do have the best and most respectful motorcycle community on YouTube too. I thank all of you for that. From the people who have been here since the start to the ones who have just joined us. You are the people who have helped me make this channel what it is today. Remember to check out the other Real Biker channels linked on the community page too. Together we are stronger. Please share the video on any forums you use and with anyone you think will be interested if you could. That's one of the things that helps the most. It kicks the YouTube algorithm into gear and helps to get the channel out there to new viewers. For the best biker t-shirts and other merchandise made by bikers for bikers, you can visit the website or the Redbubble shop linked in the description below too. There are other exciting motorcycle adventures and other stories from the shed and beyond on the website too. So why not grab a cuppa and take a look around? You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. I hope you get some great riding in. And remember, keep your spanners close and your keys even closer. Ride free, everyone!